Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Chantele. And I can't believe we're doing our final ranking for Survivor 41. It's our last one.
It is. Here we are. But first, if you're new to this channel, please click subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. And also say hello and welcome back to Parade.com's Mike Bloom. Mike, here we are.
Well, you're saying that, but I do have an hourglass off screen. I can smash it. And it can take us back.
Oh boy, wait.
This is the be careful what you wish for thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just holding that in front of you. You know, this is real Aesopian in that way.
that might take us back too far. Not sure about that. Well, Mike, how did you feel? We're going to talk season whole. We're going to talk individual, but just this last episode, how'd you feel? I mean, did you see Danny coming or leaving? Did you see that coming?
I see Danny leaving coming. Good question. Let me also preface this by saying that so I was on with the great Rob Cesternino this past week on Rob Has a Podcast, in which we talked for nearly 4 hours, mostly about nonsense, but like occasionally with some Survivor talk in there. So I do apologize if I sound like I'm repeating myself. I am not that original of a person. So apologies if I have not created any new thoughts in my brain between Thursday and now.
They're your thoughts. You own them. You say it over and over again.
Exactly. Like I'm branding. That's what branding is, right? Just repeating the same things over and over again and hoping that it gets copyrighted. So look, did I see Danny leaving coming? No. Because Deshawn showed his whole ass in front of the jury. It seemed like Deshawn did not see Danny leaving coming. I think Deshawn. People might talk about the weaponizing of the truth kamikaze. I honestly think it was a bit of throwing an old attempt to throw someone under the bus on the way out. We see it a lot in something like Big Brother, as an example, right? Calling people on your way out the door. I personally think that's what Deshawn was doing. So I think he was pretty shocked to see it happen. I think Danny was not like disappointed, but not surprised, considering he was one of two people up. I think the more I take time away from this decision, the more I do think it was to the betterment of all four people in that sort of new clad majority of four to vote out Danny or Deshawn over Deshawn, which we'll certainly get into. For the episode, super solid. And I think we needed a solid episode. You know, the past few episodes have just been so wild in many ways, whether it was the highs of the epicness of the sham blindside, or like last week with really important weighted conversation, but also immersed around like a big production twist, which I know certainly had people thinking as well. Like this was a nice, simple, solid round of Survivor with some really interesting people doing some really interesting strategies. That's all I want. And so it was nice to see. And I think teed things up nicely for a really messy, but like really interesting endgame with this group of people. You know, Danny was someone who they probably had the cleanest portrayal, I would say, amongst the remaining six people. And even then was a little understated compared to everyone else. And so season 41 has been...
Oh, microphone check. Oh, say that last part again, Mike. You were
season 41,
oddly muted.
Season 41 has been, one big old mess, but like a happy mess at that. And so I have been, I like the fact that we're going into a messy endgame. And if removing Danny from the board was a necessary evil to do that, then I'm happy for it.
I have to agree. Like this 5, I don't really think I quite pictured it this way, but it really does make it exciting. Chantele, what do you think?
I mean, I'm definitely curious as to how it's all going to play out, because I was so surprised by the Deshawn truth bomb, truth kamikaze, whatever that was. It's like, what are you doing? So it can make sense that maybe he was trying to, set up Danny to put him in a better position to maybe put another target just to help him out on his way out. So maybe that makes a little bit of sense, but I was still like, what are you doing? And then I was also so unsure as to why they didn't make it a 2-2-2. Like I was like, why are they voting for each other? Like why? I was just the whole time I was like, why do you like have to vote for each other? I'm like, there's other people to vote for. I still can't figure out why they did that, to make it for sure them. At least try to get the votes onto Xander, and then maybe people will have a change of thought when he doesn't use his idol, that like, oh, maybe we should take him out, so like, he doesn't automatically go to Final Four. So I had a lot of confusing thoughts about how the episode went down, but it's still enjoyable, and I agree with you, Mike. I love clean Survivor, just like we're just seeing how they play the game, not how they maneuver around production twists.
Yes, how they act, not react. I mean, so on that point, this goes a little bit to, me and a bunch of other people from the press have done exit press with Danny. So it seems like this is maybe a sign of how cutthroat this cast is. So Danny and Deshawn did try something, and this is maybe going to play into a bit of our ratings and takedown of the endgame. So they allegedly approached Xander and said, okay, look, the goal is to take down Ricard, right? That's plan A. You want to come in with the 4 strongest challenge competitors. I love Heather. That ain't her. And so they attempted to do that. Xander apparently did not bite. And so this speaks to, again, I think there's the competition aspect between the two guys. They basically said like, all right, it's got to go for each other, because essentially what they didn't want to set up is, it really is, despite the misnomer of a prisoner's dilemma that's been used in the first couple episodes of this season, this truly was a prisoner's dilemma, where basically if one person voted for Xander, it really does tee up the other person to vote for the other person, right? So like, say, for example, Danny tells Deshawn, all right, we're going to do it 2-2-2 on Xander. I'm going to vote for Xander. Deshawn could very easily and probably most likely be like, look, if it's a 2-2-2 tie, there's a good chance I'm going. If I vote for Danny, then it's 3-2-1, right? 3 votes for Danny, 2 votes for Deshawn, 1 vote for Xander. And so I do think that they did it, as Danny claims, to, I think, eliminate that temptation of it being able to essentially like stab each other in the back. So it's odd, in voting for each other, they ironically enough like affirm their loyalty to each other. It's so odd to say, but it basically removed the item from the board. I know it's definition of irony, but it essentially prevented them from turning their votes, onto the other person when that plan wasn't the case, and stabbing the other person in the back.
Well, the only person that I think that would have done that might have been Deshawn. I don't think Danny would have done it. So it would be the same outcome, essentially, anyways, considering how it went down.
Well, I get it. I mean, I was surprised by, a few things I've read in exit interviews. Also, the fact that they just don't think that Xander's GOAT material, apparently. And we're out here yelling, why is no one going for Xander? When they're like, why would we go for Xander? It's all very confusing, but I can't wait to put my feelings on Deshawn's score here. So let's dive into each of them individually. We're down to only 5 people. And as a reminder, we're gamers here. So instead of 4 stars, you get either 1 dice or up to 6 die if your game is really, really good. So Chantele, we're starting with Deshawn because Danny's out. So what are you giving Deshawn?
It's really
and honestly
hard.
We've been saying, like each week, because we do this every week, so we change our ratings every week, but now it feels like the whole game, though, like this week, but also the whole game.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I mean, that's just how I'm feeling. You guys do.
Okay.
You.
Okay. I got a different rubric, but let's see. We'll compare.
Let me talk it out and see if I want to change my ranking. So I've enjoyed Deshawn, and I love the fact that he wants to win. He's had to make some, decisions where he was grappling between like, am I loyalty for the culture, or do I want to try to play and win? So I appreciate that he wants to be there, and he's had to make some sacrifices in some of the moves that he's made, and the friendships and the bonds, all that stuff. But it doesn't seem like he makes the right move. Like he doesn't say the right thing, or, comes to the right decision at the right time. So as much as he's eager to do well and get to the end and potentially win, I actually don't feel as though he is capable of making the right decision to get that to happen. At this point, I was surprised that he stayed. I realized that it's because they feel that he has a better shot at beating Ricard potentially in one of these immunity challenges. But then he went out with this truth bomb, which makes those people that kept you probably not necessarily want to keep you next time around. So he might be in a bad position again, especially if Ricard ends up winning the next immunity. So with the fact that I feel as though he doesn't really have that much agency in the game, I don't think that he could get anybody to vote with him in a majority, but he stayed. So I'm giving Deshawn 2.
Oh, wow. Oh. Okay.
Oh, I was like, wait, are you bumping up his score because he stayed?
No, I did a little bit.
Okay, well. All right, a 2. All right. Mike. He's pondering this.
Well, okay, so here's the problem is this is going to be wildly different, and I'm sure people are going to be mad at me, but whatever.
Survivor 41. Let's do it.
Yes. I mean, I tried to do what 40% of our population doesn't do, which is try to approach things from a scientific and logical angle. Look, I have 6 dice to give away. I made it very simple. I gave 2 scores out. One is a score of 0, 1, or 2 for the chances they have of making the end game. And then I gave a score 0 to 4 of a chance they have to win should they reach the end game. So I think mine's a little different. It's not as retrospective. It's more so looking forward. So that being said, let's talk about Deshawn. When it comes to making it to the end out of a 0, 1, or 2, I did give him a 1 because here's the thing about Modern Survivor. The final 4 round is so different. Right? Because like you basically have to make it through one more round, and then you're either like basically guaranteed to make fire or you're sitting in the final 3. So it's not like there's only one more vote they have to get through in that regard. And I think that because of the spotlight that is on someone like Ricard, I think Deshawn is someone who could surprisingly slip through. I also think that there is this idea of the chicken alliance, whatever you want to call it. Seems like a group of 3 in which Erika and maybe Xander, we didn't get his perspective, but it seems like they are amicable to possibly going to the end together. And again, like I think another reason why he was kept is because he also might have not made a great case for himself of like, hey, you could take me to the end. Look what I just did. I thought I knew what was going on, and clearly I didn't. So I think he's not, next to go guaranteed. I don't think he's a shoo-in for the final 3, so that gave me a 1. Here's my thing. Despite his showing in this episode, if Deshawn makes it to the end, I still think he has a good chance of winning. I think that there have been moments where he has embarrassed himself, like you said, but like while we're recently biased a bit, let's look at the episode prior to this one, when he has this beautiful opening up to the jury about the moral difficulties that he has. Like Deshawn is hot and cold. Just in general on Survivor. There have been moments like at the merge where we're like, oh, look at what Deshawn's doing. This is awesome. And then there have been moments like last week where you're like, Deshawn, what the hell are you doing? It can apply to both ways. And I do think if he makes it to the end, he has enough stuff to talk about on top of, I think, being able to, speak positively of his game. That I do think if he makes it to the end, I think he has one of the better chances of garnering a good amount of jury votes. So out of those 4 points, I gave him 3. And so 1 plus 3 is 4.
Okay.
You're adding them.
You're
averaging them.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Yeah, so out of 6 dice, right? 4 is for the win, 2 is for the end game. So I think that, I think that it might be tougher for him to get there. But I do not think particularly, maybe I'm reading into the edit too much, but I do not think that this past episode is like, oh, guaranteed GOAT. I think it was not a great look, but there have been plenty of people that have won the show before that have had not great looks in the final few rounds of the game.
Agreed. Okay, got you now. I follow you. Got it. So I was like, wow, he's saying a lot of good stuff for a 1, 4.
Yeah, exactly. He sucks.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, for your super chat. This is I loving this final 3 as well.
I like it.
This 3 here. Okay, well, Mike's gonna make me look mean because I am back down with Chantele. He's getting a 2. He has been dropping every week from he started really high with me, and it just keeps going lower. Ricard said something a couple episodes ago, and I feel like it is spot on, and I had to go back and quote it. Deshawn's game is confusing to me. He's very emotional and blames a lot of people. He can't take ownership of the fact that he's all over the place, can't commit to any one person, and doesn't really know what direction to go to have a good game. I just thought that sums up my feelings on Deshawn pretty well. I hear that there were issues. I know it was difficult to save Danny or Deshawn this week. I understand. But for you to have some decent strategy, I would have seen something. I would have, even if they had done the 2 on Xander and Deshawn, changed it and got Danny out, then I would bump you up, because that is a strategy and you are playing for your game. The fact that they ultimately voted for each other and did nothing. Deshawn, he didn't do nothing. He tried to get Heather out, and I don't get that. I don't understand that strategy. I guess it makes sense to him, but to me, that is a 2. So I'm so sorry, Deshawn, but I feel like he doesn't. Another way I looked at voting this week, Mike, was if they do get to the end game, their odds of selling themselves, their resume, how they look as a winner. And so the people who I think have a better chance of winning have higher. I think if he's sitting in the final 3, that it'll be harder for him to win. So that is another reason he gets a 2 from me. So the audience actually gave him a 3.
Okay.
They were a little middle of the road. So he's going to average out at a 3.
Yeah.
With Mike's.
I think that makes sense. Again,
Mike's very generous 4.
I think very, very hot and cold. I think averages out to like the exact middle score. I think makes a lot of sense.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, Erika is next. And Mike, can you start us with Erika?
All right. Well, now y'all are going to make me feel like I'm just like Santa Claus giving out scores
here.
No, but it's not terrible. So in terms of, let's start with the endgame stuff. I gave Erika, out of a possible score, a 2. I gave her a 2. I can't imagine many scenarios where Erika doesn't go to the end here, because she has basically she's like has a bunch of people wanting to take her to the end. She obviously has Heather. Now maybe that is a bit more contested now that the information has come out about her possibly wanting to get rid of Heather. But it does seem like they have enough of a relationship, and I think Erika may want to bring her to the end. And then she has Deshawn and Xander. This has, a final 3 alliance that when in doubt, she can lean upon. I think even if Ricard goes on to an immunity run, like, she has experience making fire. Hell, she spent 2 days out there on exile by herself. So I think she has the skills to make it in there. So I gave her the full 2. I think there is a small chance that she is not sitting in the final 3. And if she is sitting in the final 3, I think she's another person who has a good shot of winning. Now, there is some discussion about the fact that a lot of the word associations that in Gordon Holmes' exit interviews, right, refer to Erika as lucky. That is like the only term for her. I do feel like that is the other edge of the sword, right, is that a lot of people can point to that hourglass and be like, you would have been gone were it not for that. I think she could very easily, especially if she's sitting next to Deshawn, and be like, well, Deshawn would have been gone if he picked one of those other 2 boxes. Xander could have been gone if Yasa went to tribal council at all at any other time in the pre-merge. So hopefully she'd be able to bounce it back. Well, Survivor is a lot of luck, and I just happen to benefit from that. Yeah, I think Erika's had a really good arc. She really has that lamb into lion thing. She could really step forward and be like, people want to get rid of me so many times, and this is why, is because I'm sitting right here at the end. I'm proving to you why you should have gotten rid of me the entire time. And here I am roaring at all of you. So I think it might be tough depending on Erika's perception and who she's sitting against. But I do think of the final 5 point blank, she is one of the people that has one of the better chances of winning. So I gave her 3 out of 4 points, and 3 plus 2 is 5.
Math! 5. I love it. I also gave Erika a 5. We have seen her a little bit more every week. They show us her input, and I am giving her kind of the bulk of the credit here for the Deshawn or voting Deshawn out, Danny out and keeping Deshawn this week. She seemed to vocalize the strongest reason when they were all sort of weighing back and forth which one to target. She seemed to have a clear way that she wanted to go, and she expressed that to Ricard. Now, I'm sure that she wasn't the only one who felt this way, but it seemed like she was sort of pushing her agenda and getting her way. So I feel like she has just been getting better and better. And I agree with you. She has very high odds when I start to look at like who could make it to this final three. She probably will make it. And if she's not sitting next to Ricard, I think she's the second most likely to win this season. So she gets a 5 from me, Chantele.
Wow, we're all in agreement here for Miss Erika. Yes. Now, you know, she definitely had a lot of luck come into play to her game. You know, that hourglass twist completely changed the game. And I do think that it's potential that people like Danny has been very vocal about how he wasn't really happy about that twist, the lie he calls it. And so that could play against her in the final tribal council, just by convincing people that like that lie was like good gameplay. But I do think that she has a really, really good chance of getting there. I am concerned though on whether or not Ricard might find her to be a threat, because she would be the only person that might steal some votes from Ricard potentially, just because she does have all those original Luvu people that would be voting. And so, like, yes, Ricard has played the best game. I think that he pretty much will win hands down, no matter who he sits next to. But if he wants to ensure that he gets that win, I think that he might consider taking out Erika. So for the fact that she's still in a little bit of a vulnerable position, I'm going to give her that 5 instead of giving her the full 6, because it's possible that she could be taken out because she is been playing quite well in those last few rounds.
Yeah, I agree that if Ricard wins immunity this week and is or for some reason is definitely safe, he could very possibly target Erika.
But the question is, who would he get? You know, like how much? I mean, you talk about this with Deshawn. Like, how much pull does Ricard have?
I think he has a lot of pull.
I personally think he has all the pull.
Because like Xander wouldn't vote him out like that time when it was important, because he wanted to keep Ricard in the game. And I just think that he might be able to influence Xander to like be like, hey, Xander, like she's playing a good game. Like we got to get her out. Like let's vote on her. This
I feel like
round.
you can easily get Deshawn. I think Deshawn.
Deshawn, he's
option.
in.
All right. Well, the audience is also going to give Erika a 5. So she is going to, across the board, average out at a 5. Which brings us to Heather.
Who?
Sweet Heather. I'm sorry, Heather, but you're sticking at a 1 for me. I don't know that I can go higher than a 1. You have not proven to me that you have done anything more than be a number. You're a great loyal number to Erika, it appears, and that's great for Erika, but I have not seen Heather step up and have much gameplay, so I am giving her a 1. Chantele?
I have no arguments here. You know, I've been wanting to see more of a game out of Heather. I mean, in the beginning with that one secret scene that was just like ranking her on for this whole season. She did get a few more confessionals this time around, so like at least she has a little bit more visibility. So that tells me that she's probably going to be involved in the end game. But I just don't see any way that she, even if she does a Chris Underwood type final tribal, all that fancy shenanigans, I can't see a universe, a timeline, a trajectory where she could possibly win this game. So for that, she has to hold a 1. She cannot win, and unfortunately she's also not very visible, so yeah, uno.
Okay, uno from you. Mike, are we making it all the same?
Yeah, 6, exactly. No, I'm going completely in the opposite direction. You true to this season. No, I mean, by default, she's gonna get a 2 from me in general, because the 2, again, using my math, the 2's
Right.
got to come from the end game thing, because I gotta think as long as she makes it past the final 5 rounds, she's gonna be sitting in the final 3, because either she wins immunity or she's the person that the immunity winner's taking. I
Yeah.
cannot see a scenario where it's like, we're sending Heather into fire, unless she, I don't know, decides to quit the game at that moment and is like, just send me here. If I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. You know, I do not necessarily see Heather being targeted as this big threat to take out. So I'm going to give her a 2 for that regard. But yeah, it's 0 when it comes to endgame potential. Both from an edit perspective, she is by far the quietest person there, and I don't think it's in like a Natalie White, well, we're going to see why everyone else lost and she won regard, especially compared to like Erika, right? Who a lot of people compare to her in the first few stages of the game of like, we're not seeing anything from either one of them. Erika shows there was a reason behind that because she was clearly lying low and then finding a reason. Heather just seems, I don't know, like enigmatic. It's interesting when I talked with Danny. Danny said that obviously, you know, he and Heather were not as close as Deshawn and Heather were. He accredits something to like him and Heather seemed to have like a misunderstanding early on that led to a personal rift. So between that and like the Sydney stuff, it was clear that Heather was not making the best relationships in general. And I would imagine that translates to an end game where even if I think she is able to talk about what she was able to do in the game, I think that this is not necessarily the group that would pay it a lot of mind. And so that's a goose egg for me when it comes to winning. And so that's going to end up with a 2 ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. We've you know, obviously we didn't see a lot of her in the edit overall, but the more that we got exit interviews, it seemed like people didn't have a ton of wonderful things to say about her. It wasn't like, oh, Mama Heather, we love her so much. We weren't getting that vibe. So not only does she seem like someone who hasn't been super involved in the game, she's not super loved and isn't going to get votes just because they love her. So I feel like she is prime chef's kiss goat material. Absolutely sit next to her at the end. I assumed Ricard has already thought about that. I assumed Erika is planning on it. And then this last episode, Deshawn's like, you can't sit next to Heather. You guys played the same game. And I'm confused, but obviously they're in a different world than we are. Mike, do you understand any reasoning that they would target Heather? Or at least from Erika's perspective, that she shouldn't sit next to Heather?
Well, so I mean, it comes down to what she says, and I think that is the big thing with, you know, this has been a season about pairs, but Heather and Erika are really the tightest pair left. I mean, essentially, as exciting as the Ghost Island finale was, I think it has put such a spook in players, right? We get to the end, people can't discern our games, we end up splitting votes, and I end up losing the game. I think that is a fear that is in a lot of people. I think it is abundantly clear at this point we are experiencing something very different from the players. Clearly, I think Heather is doing stuff out there. This is not, again, an Erika situation where it's like she is not doing anything. It seems like she's doing a lot. It's just for whatever reason, either maybe it's some personal stuff, or maybe it's just like too chaotic. It doesn't really play into the overall narrative. We're not necessarily seeing it. But like, let's remember back to that Tiffany tribal council where she's like, oh, my name's out there. Fine, let me go whisper things around. Like, she's very capable of just doing absolutely bananas things. So I really do think it's a matter, and we'll talk about this with one other person as well, of just like us really buying into the edit. I am sure there is something going on there. And I'm sure Erika seems like a very logical person. I think there was rationale as to what she's saying. It just doesn't jive with, obviously, our perspective. But we need to remember that our perspective is not objective. It is being filtered through the lens of many editors who are distilling down a lot of stories. And so I think that, you know, if Erika feels like she and Heather have been on the same tribe since the beginning, they have voted together at basically every single vote, I think that does set up this idea of like, okay, maybe our moves will not necessarily be distinguished from one another. Chalk it up to Survivor history as well. I can understand the logic, even though the edit is telling us the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Well, and
It's
also
so
maybe
interesting.
even
Yeah, Chantel.
grabbing a vote from Heather too, because like if Heather's in that jury, it is potential that she could at least get that one vote. If she's sitting beside Heather, she loses that vote for sure. So if she's trying to maybe get people to vote for her, it could be an interesting tactic to get her sitting on the jury. So at least she has some people that are going to be fighting for her. So, but I still don't think she's gonna. There's any world that Heather's going to be voted out.
Yeah, I would. Who knows? I don't know. The audience gave Heather a 2.
Okay.
So
generous.
I forgot to put
Oh
your 2 in. Well, they're averaging as well.
Yeah, I was going to say so let's look this back. The entire season, has anyone ever received a flat 1 from the audience?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd have to.
Is this like the JD Brad stuff?
I'm double checking my weeks. You know what?
I think that we had it recently.
That they have,
or maybe it was a 6 that
yeah, we were surprised because we did finally get a 6 averaged for Ricard last week. But you're right. Otherwise, we had no 1s and no 6s.
Yeah, it's weird. So, the internet is full of extremities, but I feel like when you actually are tempted to rate people on a scale, I feel like they don't tend to go in like one direction or the other.
Yeah.
You tend to find a lot of more 2 to 5s than 1s or 6s.
Exactly. So she is going to average out at a 2. It's going to be a 1.5. So we're going to round that up to a 2. So way to go. Way to make it to probably the end, Heather. I think you will. But let's move on. Oh, no. Yes.
Oh, no, just a quick thing, though. I just was thinking about with the word associations and with the fact that after seeing the show, the season up until now, and Shan still says that her word for Heather was ignorant, that also is going to play into the minds of the jurors that, like, if that's still how Shan takes away her experience with Heather, I think that that's probably a communal thought of maybe like who Heather is as a person. So I don't even think that she's going to be able to snag any votes if that's Shan's perspective after the season.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I don't know, like I cannot make any suppositions about Heather's character. We do not know her, but like between her response to that tribal council from a couple of weeks back and then like her talk with Deshawn this time around, and like you said, that sort of like ignorant word association, I'm not sure. Like this seems like a cast that like celebrates diversity. And Heather really seems to be coming from the perspective, like, I didn't know this was all happening. And I don't know how appreciative the jury would be of that. Right? Of like, all right, we're a super diverse cast. Let's celebrate the person who had no idea any of this was happening until about 4 days ago. Like that doesn't necessarily, this is not Sarah Lacina, right? Being like, oh my God, like she's the first transgender person I met. Let me build a relationship with you. It's very, very much different in that regard. So I totally agree with you, Chantele.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Mr. Ricard himself is up next. Chantele, how are you feeling about Ricard?
I love gamers, right? I love people that are playing the game, that are making moves, that like just like they want to win and they do what it takes to win. He is doing, I think, the best this season. We were worried that when he took out his closest ally, Shan, that it might have been too soon, but we're seeing that he at least got to the finale here. And so far it's looking like it wasn't too soon. I think he has a really great shot at potentially winning the next immunity challenge, which pretty much puts him in a lock to being, in the final 3. And so for that, like for everything that he's been doing so far, being entertaining, like being able to read the room, having people want to keep him around when they should be wanting to take him out. I think it's really great gameplay. And I want to see him rewarded for great gameplay. So if the survivors gods can't do that, well, I can do that by giving him a 6.
That's right.
He gets your jury vote. Yeah.
Yeah. He gets my vote no matter what at this point.
Like, all right.
He's great.
I love it. I love it. Mike.
All right. So let's start with making his way to the end game. So I gave him a 1 out of 2 because look, he has to win out. Plain and simple. I think when even Xander, who seems to be his tightest ally at this point, is like, I think we made a mistake. It is clear he has to win the next immunity challenge and then either win the following immunity challenge or fire making to make it there. So it's not as rock solid as I would say Erika or Heather in terms of like guaranteed to be making the final three no matter what. It is strong. He's definitely the best challenge performer there. And I would say that, you know, another reason why he ends up keeping Deshawn over Danny is that, you know, Danny was really one of the only people to beat Ricard in a challenge. Let's remember that, like, as much as there's been a lot of talk with all the other people, right, of like, oh, well, Deshawn could do so much. He was there in the puzzle. But again, Ricard has only lost a couple of individual immunity challenges, and Danny was one of the only people, was the one of those two that beat him over Deshawn. Deshawn dropped out of that super early. And so from Ricard's perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to have kept Deshawn over Danny. Just want to get that out there. So Ricard gets a 1 out of 2 for me in that perspective. When it comes to endgame, he gets the 4 out of 4. It is abundantly clear they have beat this in this over and over and over again. If Ricard makes it to the end, he wins. Between the big moves that he made, between the impressive challenge wins, maybe the social game was a bit lacking, but it seems like in Shan's absence, he's been able to sort of spread his wings and make more bonds with people to create these close connections, like with Xander. He really is the full package in that happenstance. Now, again, the question is, will he make it there? There still is some wonkiness to everything going on. I do think if he loses the next immunity challenge, I think he's gone. I think unless he's able to find some sort of idol from this, you know, wild goose chase on this new island. So that being said, the 1 plus the 4 gives me the 5 overall. Wish I could go full 6 with Chantele, but I just feel like there's you know, a couple of things he really has to do in order to make it to that final 3 where he's a slam dunk winner here.
I totally understand what you're saying. The fact that he may not make it to the end, because if he does not win immunity, he's probably the vote out. I give him more points for that, because we are now in, so therefore he gets a 6 from me. We are now in the part of the game where you are trying to take out the Vanessas, you are trying to take out the Tiffany's, you are trying to take out the people who are obviously going to win at the end game. And so it speaks to how good of a player he is, that he is the #1 target. He also won immunity this week, and I always bump you up if you win immunity. That's good for your game. So he is going to get the highest score from me. But I'm going to echo just a lot of what Chantele said. Like, overall, I think he is one of the best players I've seen in a while. I love his strategic mind. And even though I gave Erika credit for choosing Deshawn to keep Deshawn and get rid of Danny, I think that Ricard was on board with that, because if Ricard wasn't on board with that, then it probably wouldn't have happened. We haven't really seen a week where Ricard said, I want this, and then it didn't happen. So I have to imagine he wasn't really against getting Danny out. We saw Danny say he wanted Ricard out, and like you said, Danny's a good challenge competitor. Deshawn, I think, is not as strong as Danny is when we're talking about immunity challenges. So I do think that's better for Ricard. So yes, 6 from me. And guess what? For the second week in a row, the audience is averaging out at a 6. It was like almost a full 6.
Wow, look at good. Nice.
So he is going to average out as a 6 with us.
Nice.
Incredible. So exciting.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a really so fun.
I was gonna say, it would be so nice if he actually wins, because I usually don't get the person that I want to win the game, because like it isn't best for them to go to the end for everybody else, of course. And so if he can actually get there, it's the only time I ever really like winning out, because like Mike Holloway, when he won out, I was like, no, like all the other people that have won out at the end, I'm not usually a fan of, but him, he can win out because I want him to win. So I'm putting it out there.
I mean, it's interesting though, because there's a difference, I think, between, in all the ways to win out, there is the Bob and Fabio method, which is just like you are not involved with the voting whatsoever, but you're still like you're immune, so like we have to keep you along. And then there is, I would say, for Card wins, it would be closer to a Mike Holloway, because people do remember the Mike Holloway challenge streak, but Mike was also making moves, right? Like he idols Tyler out. He is able to like get Mama C on board to get rid of Dan. Like he was immune that entire time, but he was giving moves to himself that he could take credit for, as opposed to like, again, some of those other people that won out. And that's why people like Brad Culpepper, for example, who do win out, might not necessarily win in the end, because it's like, great, you won a bunch of necklaces and some people value that, but like, what did you do with it?
Right.
Which actually, segues a bit into a bit of Xander stuff as well in that regard.
Ooh, well then start us off with Xander, Mike.
Yeah, so Xander, let's talk about Endgame first. Because, let's talk about a big surprise, which has been coming out in the exit press. Now, again, this is from one person, but I do think it answers a question that, as Sarah pointed out, has sort of been lingering in a lot of fans' minds of like, Xander has an idol, he's a dangerous in the competitions. What's going on here? Xander might be a GOAT, people. Xander might be a GOAT. It seems like what Danny was implying in a lot of our exit press is that the reason why people weren't caring about the idol is because they wanted to take Xander to the end anyway, because he was not necessarily somebody who was making the best impression with the jurors. So from that perspective, when it comes to making it to the end game, I'm going to give him the full 2 points out of 2, because again, I think he has the idol, so he's guaranteed to make Final Four anyway. And if he does win immunity at 5, he could use that idol to do some interesting things if he really wants to. And I think, unless someone really comes around and is like, wait a minute, Ricard actually is dangerous, we should take him out. Xander is dangerous, we should take him out. I think he's basically guaranteed Final 3. I would not be surprised if the Final 3 is like Heather, Xander, and then one combination of the other 3. Because it does seem like Xander is somebody that a lot of people are looking to take the end, not necessarily out of a game respects game, and more so out of a I don't know if this jury's going to give it to a 20-year-old kid. So from that perspective, I had to give him the 1 when it came to the end game stuff, the winning, as it were. He's not dead in the water like Heather, but it's not a great chance. He has a story that he could feasibly bring in about, he was the last of the Yasa turtles. They all got taken out, but he was able to make it to the ocean, and now he can swim. I had an idol, nobody targeted me. Unfortunately, they could reply with, yeah, you had an idol and nobody targeted you because nobody cared you had an idol. You had an idol, but what did you do with it? You didn't use it on Tiffany. You didn't use it on Evie. You just kept it for yourself, and you didn't do anything after that. It's unfortunate that, some stuff outside of the game has maybe warped our perceptions of Xander, who I think on the show has gotten a really interesting edit, and some people might think is one of the competitors to win just based on what we've seen from him the entire season. I personally think that the theory is that he's just has a really nice voice and he's very well spoken. And so I think Jeff Probst also loves, the youngins as well. And so I think he was happy to constantly cut to Xander time after time to say something. And that has less to do with his endgame stuff and more so of he just gives good sound bites. And so 2 to get to the end game, 1 to win, leaves us with 3.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, yes. So we're learning that maybe inside the game, they're not giving him as much credit as we were giving him. But that's how we all started. At the beginning of this game, we were like, who's this fool? Is he dumb? What's happening? We couldn't tell. And he wasn't able to vote. He was kind of being used on his first try. They wanted him out. It was confusing to us as well. But then we were able to see moments of him being actually very smart and strategic. I mean, the play to save Evie still goes down in history for me as an amazing play. And then he had to step back, right? He had to play dumb. He had to blend in to survive. And I think that is why people are overlooking him or not giving him credit, because he had to do that, which is difficult because now he is in a position where he'd have to sit at the end and really sell himself to counteract all of that work he did in the game to blend in. But I think that he is well-spoken, and there is a possibility that he could name the things that he did do and then explain, I've been fooling all of y'all. I'm not that dumb. I blended in on purpose. Those are the credits I'm giving him. So I have a little bit of respect for his game. And I think that if he is in the end, I've already said Ricard absolutely wins. Then I think if he's not there, Erika wins. I think Xander is the third person. So that is why I'm giving him a 4.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I understand where you're coming from here. And this whole game, this whole season, I personally have never felt that Xander was a contender. And people have been kind of convincing me a little bit that like, like he's been doing this and he's been not using his idol and it's good gameplay and he's been invisible and like that's all strategic. And so I can look at that and respect that. But I actually think that I don't think that he's played a game that his fellow castmates are going to be able to respect, because I was always saying like, well, you have that idol, like do something with it, get some power, like, you know, you mentioned like the Tiffany vote, like save Tiffany, like do something where the jury is going to be able to see that you, without any help of your former Yasa tribe mates, like are able to make a move that is beneficial for your game, that's going to help you get some power in this game. And I've been waiting for him to do that, and he hasn't really. And so I know the show is kind of painting him as like, oh, I made these moves and like, oh, I'm the top dog now, and like, but I just actually don't believe that that is true. I kind of feel like the other players are like, you know, they're playing the game with him, but they're just kind of humoring him like, oh, Xander and your idol. Okay. Like, I don't think they're actually playing the game with him. And that's kind of like how you're playing with like a kind of like a child. So to your point as well, Mike, but saying like, you know, will they give them $1 million to a 20-year-old? I just don't see them doing that with how the game has gone so far this season. So for that, like, he's in a good position. I do think that he has a really good chance of winning an immunity. I think that he's a high chance of making the fire if he needs to. I have a good chance of sitting in the final 3. So I can't rank him too low, but I just don't feel like the people that are in that jury are going to want to give him the votes over anybody other than Heather. And so for that reason, he's going to get a 3 from me. He's sitting right there in the middle because like he has the potential to maybe say all the right things. But I feel like if he takes any credit for some of the moves that he made, I don't think that Evie and Tiffany are going to be happy about that. Especially like even, you know, phrase words that, what was it? Mergatory?
Yeah.
Was that? There's
yeah,
two of them.
Mergatory.
And Mergatory and Betraydar.
And I think both of them were not his, and so he's getting kind of credit for being like this, like so savvy player, and he's making these moves, and he's top dog, and he's deciding who's going. But like then the people are like, wait, no, that was me, and so I just don't know if he's going to be able to take credit for all these moves that we've seen him make, because the people that actually made the moves are the ones that are going to be giving out the votes. So I don't think that he can win against anybody. Like if it's a final 3. No. If it's final 2, only against Heather. So for that, he's kind of in the middle of the road here. So 3.
So, yeah, I mean, you know what? Well, Xander, you know what his chances really and perception really reminds me of? He really reminds me of Dean. And it was a very similar story with Dean, right? Where he was building in the end game, and a lot of people were like, oh my God, wait, can Dean actually win this? And then Dean gets to the end and gets what, like 2 votes? And everyone's like, you know, Dean does exactly what we were talking about, where Dean's like, at one point, I had an immunity necklace and an idol nullifier. And people were like, yeah, but did you do anything with it? You know, it was nice jewelry, but like, what did you actually do to advance yourself in the game? And I feel like that is the perception of Xander as well. And I do think that he has mettle as a player, especially as a 20-year-old. Like, I think he's someone who has a very good head on his shoulders. And considering what he's been through, he's essentially like kind of been on the outs since episode 2 and has done some really fun stuff at the merge. It just seems like, I think with this particular group of players, I don't know if that's something that they will potentially see as opposed to maybe other casts. So I give a lot of kudos to Xander for so many things. I just think a large reason why Chantele and I in particular are striking him down, I think, is just, it seems like the way he is sort of playing himself to us, he might be doing with others, and it's not exactly working.
Yes, I hear you. The audience averaged out at a 4, so he is going to average out at a 4. I guess thanks to me. I don't know. But anyway,
if he gets one vote, I'll be shocked. Who would give Xander a vote against anybody else other than Heather?
Well, look, here's the thing. This 5, it's like we started this stream saying like, what a 5. Like there's not a clear path to a clear winner here. And this finale, I mean, we've definitely been in situations where all of a sudden in the finale, someone like comes on through. I mean, if he won immunity and saved Ricard with his, like, I don't know if he did some big move with his idol, and then won the next immunity and gets to sit at the end and say, I brought this group here we are. I don't know, like there's always a possibility at the end, except for Heather. Heather's the only one.
I know Rob was talking about this a little bit as well in the podcast I did, right? Of like, he has to Underwood it, I think, a little bit, where he has to, like you said, like win immunity and then like plays an idol on someone to successfully get out Ricard, or that he like makes it to 4 and sends himself in against Ricard and ends up, beating him. There has to be things that he actually claims to him. Even then, I still think there is a little bit of a reputation on him of like just this kind of like independent minded kid who hasn't really been doing a lot, even if he feels like he has. And so it's going to be tough. I do think he'd improve his chances considerably if he does, do that stuff, which is why I didn't give him a full 0 when it comes to jury odds. But it's tough. It's tough going into the finale from what it seems like. Tiffany is someone who has very much expressed in her exit press that she was not a fan of what Xander did. It seemed like he was the first one to throw the Yasas under the bus. Evie seemed to have kind words about him, but there was that moment where I think Evie could have been like, you could have used an idol on me, could have used that extra vote, and we could have stayed. So I do think there's not necessarily anyone in Xander's corner. Maybe he uses his eloquence to convince 1 or 2 people to vote for him, but I'm not seeing 5 personally, unfortunately.
Well, let's talk about this end game because first off, they're going to a new island, you guys. And we saw them running around scrambling. We have to imagine new island, new advantage. What's happening here, and how is this going to save somebody that totally changes the end game here?
I don't know why they're doing this. It's like 2 days left and they're making them have to like build a shelter. I mean, I guess they just don't want it to be super boring. They want
hardest season ever, Chantele. You have to work for it.
It doesn't seem that hard. Okay, it doesn't seem that hard. But I don't know if I want to see them building a shelter. Like, I don't know what they could have done to make it more exciting, but I'm not sure if this is it. And if there's 2 people that are immune, say somebody wins immunity and then someone wins some sort of immunity idol or advantage or something, or like find something, like only 3 people to choose from. I think that I would be pissed if that was like my odds in this final 5 situation. So,
well, not to mention that Xander already has an idol, so there's a potential that could be only 2 people vulnerable as well.
Yeah, what if Ricard wins immunity, Xander has his idol, and let's say Deshawn finds whatever this advantage is? Yeah. Yeah,
then that's how Erika goes, right? Is like just by or maybe in that moment, then Erika tries to rally the troops against Heather in that moment. It's I think I mean, God help us, it better not be an idol nullifier. Because that would really suck for Xander. Right? Because like when all the idols were out in the open and one person has 1 idol left in the final round and they just hold up a big nope to it, like that just feels incredibly unfair to me and just bad planning. I really hope it's nothing major. Maybe like an advantage in the next challenge or something like that. I really don't like them throwing something in. I think what is really fun about this season, which I would not credit production with, I actually credit the players more so with, is that they were very quick to get rid of those advantages. Like, let's remember, Brad got voted out with a vote steal and an idol basically waiting to become active. So like there have been several chances where we have possibly gotten into territories where like things are just completely out of the control. And it's because of these players that we've been able to blindside people with idols in Nasir and Shan. That we have been able to sort of like use extra votes, interestingly, in what Shan did and what Xander did, but like ultimately, did not necessarily lead to this huge blindside big move or anything like that. We've gotten very lucky in that regard, and I do wonder if our luck is running out for the finale. if there is going to be some sort of like idol hidden, because we know how much they love advantage getting. we know how much they loved what happened to Suri. I would not be surprised.
I hated that moment so much. I was furious. I was like, I'm not gonna watch Survivor anymore. Like, this isn't cool. Like, I was on a boycott for a little bit. Like, I still watch, obviously, but like, I was very upset.
Metaphoric boycott. If I could stop watching, I would. So yeah, I would not be surprised if there was another idol, because there's also been a lot of searching, right? And we remember that Danny passed by this mysterious note, that Xander passed by that scroll that was under the bench. I do wonder if production wanted to put another idol out there, and for some reason, people haven't been finding it. I think, unfortunately, one's going to be there, and I think it's going to lead to a bit more of a messy Final Five vote. As for why they did it, I mean, here's what I'll say. In season 39, when they went to, the Rob and Sandra Island and they lived there was a really fun sequence where they went on that, where Tommy went on that, or Dean, I think, went on that treasure hunt, right, where he like looked on the buff and everything. Like, that was a really fun part of the finale. Yeah. I do wonder if they're trying to recreate that of like, okay, now you reach a new island, time to go. And I think also with 5 players, they have a bit more time to do that. So that'll take up a good portion of the finale. So I can imagine that only moving them to a secondary location, do they feel they'd be able to do that? I don't know why they have to build a shelter. These people have been really dragged through hell over the course of 3 weeks.
They have, whether it's the hardest season we've ever seen, it's a tough one. So it's stressful that they'd have to build their shelter right now. I agree with you. Like, watching them run around on some sort of treasure hunt, scavenger hunt, would be very fun and entertaining to watch. I am assuming it's going to be an idol type save yourself advantage, but I would prefer, like you said, Mike, maybe something that is just an advantage in the challenge, something along those lines. I feel like at this point in the game, that's the better way to go. But yeah, Xander didn't see the one under the bench. They haven't found the idol that they put back into the beach after, I guess, Nasir or Shan maybe. So I can see the producers being like, we've had barely any idols. Like, let's throw one out there.
Yeah, and that makes me nervous for 42, is I think one of the reasons why 41 has worked so well, again, is just like how cuckoo these players are, that they are not playing these advantages. And I worry if 42 are more of the ilk to like basically take it and use it, then that means we're going to see much more stuff flying. Like, the last time we haven't had an idol played in a season was Survivor Co. Wrong, and that was also under like really auspicious circumstances. So I think while this has been very fun and like how conservative the advantage use is, I would tell people to temper your expectations, especially when it comes into next episode.
Ooh, okay. Well, Final 5. I think we all agree Ricard has to win immunity or whatever, some sort of save yourself thing. Otherwise, he is going. Chantele, how are you seeing this Final 5, Final 4, Final 3? How are we getting here? What do you think is probably going to happen?
So it's probably not going to happen, whatever I think. I mean, I'm just going to, because I'm so fond of Ricard and his gameplay, I'm going to predict that, you know what, they're trying to make us think that it's not going to go this way because it's just would be the obvious ending. So I'm going to predict that Ricard does win that final immunity, that Danny will get to wag his finger again and say, I told you so. I think that he will be able to win either fire or the next immunity after that. I think he will be sitting in the final 3. I think next to him, I kind of feel like Deshawn, even though he's been kind of messy, I feel like he might be able to squeeze his way there for whatever reason. So whether he's the guy that finds the treasure hunt idol or whatever that advantage is, or if he's able to convince Ricard to take out Erika, I just feel like I can see Deshawn sitting in the final 3. And then Heather. So I think that this next round, like maybe Xander's going to stick around. I think he might lose maybe to Erika or something. I don't know. I'm just going to predict that it's going to be final 3 will be Deshawn, Ricard, and Heather. That's my guess.
With a Ricard win, then.
With a Ricard, 100% win. And no, I don't think maybe one vote from Danny to Deshawn.
That's so funny. That's the one I came up with a few different possibilities. I mean, obviously there's a lot of
Not that
possibilities,
one?
but I did not get, I don't have Ricard and Deshawn both in the final 3 together. I mean,
that would be interesting. It'd
it would be
really interesting to have the two of them in there together for so many reasons.
Because I have, like Mike said, I kind of have a Heather, Erika version with a bunch of different people. But Mike, what are you predicting here?
All right, so I mapped this out. This is complete fan fiction. I talked about this on our HAP, so apologies again. This is the exact same story. Let me paint a picture for you. Final 5. Ricard wins immunity again. His 4th immunity. People are like, dang it, now we really shouldn't have gotten rid of him. Xander has his idol. Either Deshawn finds this thing, be it an idol, maybe he plays it, or in that moment, Erika really does look at the board and say, you know what? Now that this is out there, like, I have to go through with it. And Heather goes at 5. Just due to a confluence of circumstances, Heather ends up getting voted out at 5. Plus, this is also maybe the argument that Danny was using, right? If they're like, okay, we have to bring the best people to take out Ricard at the final 4. Heather's not doing it. I think we got to take her out. So here we are. Final 4. My God, Erika comes through. The lion cub, all grown up, wins final immunity. But they still have to get rid of Ricard in the fire making. What do? Here comes Deshawn. Let's remember, first scene of episode 2, Louvu Beach. Deshawn struggles to make fire. He's hitting the Flynn with the machete. He jokes to Erika, oh, I'm the person you definitely want to put into fire. But that has now come to fruition. Erika puts Deshawn and Ricard against each other in fire. They're the 2 biggest threats at this point. But Deshawn has learned his lesson. Yes, he started clean and came out messy in terms of gameplay, but with fire, it's the exact opposite. Deshawn beats Ricard in fire making. Our Chicken Alliance is the final 3.
Wow.
It's a bit of a close contest between Deshawn and Erika, but ultimately, in a 5-3 vote, I think Deshawn takes it over Erika.
Ooh, I see it. I can see it.
Oh my God, I almost don't see any of that. Mike, what? That will blow my mind. Okay, first off, it will blow my mind if we have a Deshawn, Erika, Xander final 3, although it really shouldn't blow my mind. That's totally doable.
It'd be the most exciting outcome. Like, I love me some Ricard, but like, give me something competitive over something like a foregone conclusion, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Once you take Ricard out of the mix, and especially if you take Heather out of the mix too, those are the 3, middle.
Yeah, exactly.
Middle.
Yeah, you're taking out the outliers, right?
Yeah.
Like the one guaranteed to win and the one not, and then it's this middle pack of 3 people that are so, and like they talked about in this episode, so different in so many ways. It'd be a really interesting finale.
It would be. I would probably be angry though if Erika didn't win out of that group.
Yeah,
you gave Deshawn the win.
Yeah, I think it could be a thing where Deshawn is able to like talk about it more. Let's remember what he just did, right? If he was able to beat Ricard, maybe there's something where people are not necessarily seeing things with Erika, in terms of her resurgence. Like, I could see Erika getting votes from Tiffany, maybe Evie, maybe someone like Shan, who's still a little ticked off at Deshawn.
Exactly.
She had her moment with Danny where she was able to talk things through, right, and like be a bit cathartic. She has yet to have that moment with Deshawn, so I could like see those votes. But I don't know. I could see something else. Like Ricard could vote for Deshawn, like game respects game. Heather might vote for Deshawn, especially if Erika is one to join in voting her out. I know you talk about how Heather might be a vote for her on the jury, but if it's not exactly done in the most amicable way, Heather might not be, happy about that. Liana might be somebody who like Deshawn tried to vote with her, and Erika voted against her, voted her out. So I don't know. I feel like it would be, again, as much as we saw Deshawn showing his whole ass to the jury this last episode, I think it could be competitive, especially with those 3 at the end.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, we have to remember the jury has even less information than the people playing the game. They only get to see tribal council, and Deshawn looking like he's a hot mess and not in control of his game is what they're taking into vote with. That would be very, very interesting to see those 3. I think that
Ricard Heather wins.
Yeah.
No, I do not think that. Ricard wins immunity and is able to rally the troops to take Erika out, and Erika goes at 5. I think then, and we obviously we know Xander isn't an option at that point. Then I feel like it gets tricky, obviously. It's all tricky. But with Erika out, I feel like Ricard and Xander, it's tough then with that last challenge. But let's say Ricard can pull it out. He would take Heather. That leaves Xander and Deshawn going to fire. I'm going to say Xander wins, and I say Ricard and Heather and Xander are sitting at the final 3.
And that's what he wants, right? It's a slam dunk versus like the 2 people that are considered the goatiest out of the casts, out of this remaining group of people.
Right.
Xander would beat Deshawn in fire? Have we seen him make fire?
I don't remember anyone making fire. When Mike brought up his memory, I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. I just feel like overall, Deshawn has not impressed me with his performances in general. So that's why I'm going off of that. But I will always be 100% wrong. So unfortunately, none of that's happening for those of you who wanted Ricard to win. That's not going to happen. I'm always wrong. Probably everything Mike said, because that was the most shocking to me. That will probably come true. I'm usually very
listen, I want to see a good finale no matter what.
Yes.
So like either way, it's like either we get like a really fun winner in Ricard, or we get like an exciting conclusion where someone like a Deshawn or an Erika, or who knows, even a Xander might end up winning. So like, I don't know. It's a win-win for me. It's been a strong season overall, and I think it's going to have a strong finish either way.
I agree that, again, this 5 mixes it up enough that, we have to applaud them for getting Ricard out. If he gets out, we have to be like, yes, you did it. He won the game hands down if he got there. So good on you guys. If you can do that, you should do that. And then, at that point, fight it out, guys. I'm here for it. I'm so excited. Okay, finale is this Wednesday. Obviously, we're all going to have things to say about it afterwards, and we have other things at the end of the year and maybe the new year. So, Mike, please tell us, what do you have going on for the finale and then after?
Yeah, so for the finale specifically, because I got Survivor and then I've got like literally everything else going on in my life. So I'll start with Survivor. So with Survivor, I will be I got something coming your way. Let's say like 12 or so hours from now. I got to interview Jeff Probst to preview the finale. That was very fun. So yeah, suffice it to say, if you've been watching some of the teasers for the finale, things are being done a little differently.
Right, yes.
Jeff goes into length about that, explaining what exactly we're going to be seeing on Wednesday in the 3-hour finale. So he talks about that. I ask him a bit about how he looks back onto the season, the cast, the big moments, especially some of those big cultural moments. And I sort of pick his brain about, now that he went through 41, and going into 42 and especially 43, because obviously now he has sort of seen feedback from fans about 41. Like, what does he think? Is he going to try to continue to go down this road of the monster with danger? Is he going to try to sort of, scale it back a bit? Are there new things that he's going to try? He talks a bit about that. So think of it sort of as like a preview for the finale, a look back on the season overall, and also like a look forward as to what the future of Survivor is going to be. So that should be up tomorrow morning at parade.com. And then over the course of Wednesday and Thursday, I should be having exit press with all 5 finalists, or 5 final 5 of Survivor. Should be very fun. I love this cast. And one of the reason why this season has been so strong, 100% has been this cast. It's a really great group of people. I've loved each and every week getting to talk with them. It's all written out. All the interviews are going to be written over at parade.com. Then outside of that, I do a podcast with Liana Boris called the RHAP B&B, a Survivor Fun and Games podcast. We are doing a finale podcast where we'll break everything down from that capacity as well. Do some final games, look back on the predictions there. And in case you missed it, you still have, time to listen. Myself and Rob Cesternino talked for nearly 4 hours about this type of stuff, but also a lot of other stuff as well, both silly and serious. So be sure to check that out on YouTube or on your podcast player of choice. So that's my Survivor stuff. I'll pause here if you want more, or if you just want me to stop at Survivor, because there's plenty more.
Well, you tell us all of it. I mean, I just want to say that we love all your Survivor stuff, and
Thank you.
am so grateful that you have graced the Nerdtainment channel with your presence this season. I really have enjoyed talking to you and getting your perspective. But yes, continue. What are the non-Survivor things?
All right, so let's start on the reality TV side of things, because when the calendar turns 2022, right, like we got more stuff coming. Specifically,
ooh, do we ever? Just
January 5th, Amazing Race 33. Somehow they did it. It is coming. January 5th. We love Amazing Race 33 on this channel, do we not?
Yes, we do.
In case you haven't checked it out, I did a cast release that happened last Friday, so you get to check out the teams. Really interesting group of teams. Really interesting in many, many ways. And so I'm sure on RHAP at some point in the coming weeks with the holidays, we're also going to be doing some sort of, I don't know if it's a draft or like just a cast assessment. But once that gets going, we'll be doing weekly podcasts, at least one a week for that. And I'll be doing exit press, assumingly, for that over at Prey.com. Celebrity Big Brother as well. That'll be happening February 2nd. And so I'm sure I'll be doing stuff there. But also things are humming along over on Post Show Recaps, which is the scripted division that's a spinoff of Rob Has a Podcast. So here's the thing. Since August 2019, basically every week I have done a podcast called Down the Hatch, which is an episodic rewatch of Lost, one of my favorite shows of all time. It is done with the great Josh Wigler, also a name familiar to the Survivor fan community. We go on for 2 to 3 hours every week talking about Lost. Next week, it all ends. We have reached the final episode of Lost. So we're going to get together. We've been getting together every week. We just recorded actually our penultimate episode recap, which was a lot of fun. So if you're into Lost, you have hundreds of hours of podcasts on a backlog. So it's very much worth your wait. Check it out. I do a couple podcasts with my wife, Angela Bloom, over there. One is called The Bloom Files. She loves the X-Files. I've never seen it before. What happens when you throw them together? You get the Bloom Files. So we are actually rounding the corner on that. But what's more fun is this Friday, a little show returns to Netflix called The Witcher. People might have heard of it. It stars Henry Cavill. It's very much like I've been calling it Netflix's Game of Thrones. It's also based on a novel series, medieval-based, very supernatural, very, European. It's a really fun show. And so we are doing coverage of that. Basically, the show comes out on Friday, and like Netflix, it drops all of it at once. But we're going to do an episode a week. So we're doing the premiere on Friday, and we cover things in both a non-spoilery perspective. We just recap the episode, and then a big binge perspective where we're like, hey, looking back on this episode, wasn't it funny when this happened, considering how this happened down the line? So we try to take into account as many perspectives as possible. So if you're a fan of The Witcher, if you're not, it's really fun. Check it out on Netflix. It's only 8 episodes. Catch up before this Friday. And I'm sure there's going to be more stuff. I have more coverage lined up that has yet to be announced, but there is plenty more coming for not only the end of 2021, but 2022 as well. So it's a lot. There's a lot of things going on. I'm incredibly grateful to be so busy, but man, it's bittersweet because I'm like, oh man, Survivor's coming to an end. But I'm also like, 3 months without Survivor would be, a little nice,
as well. Little break.
And even that, like, I'm not covering it obviously in a major capacity, but Australian Survivor is, I think, coming back in February too. So like, if people are really missing island life that much, you'll get a little taste of it in February with maybe some familiar faces as well, especially from American survivors. So yeah, that's and I advertise all the words I just said over the past 5 minutes on my Twitter at a Mike Bloom type is mainly where I lurk on social media. So if you got confused and lost in the plugs, which you probably did, I will just go there. I tend to put everything out there. So it all begins in a little bit with the Jeff Probst interview, which I'm very excited about.
That is so exciting. Thank you for sharing that. That's super exciting. And yeah, it looks like the finale is going to be sort of right there after the votes in the same setting is how we're going to get the whole winner and everything. Is that confirmed? Are we allowed to say that? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, so there was actually a teaser that just came out where Jeff said, we are revealing the votes live. So for the first time, so technically this happened in Ghost Island, but it wasn't formally decided. For the first time since season 1, a winner will be announced right there on the island. Understandably so. This was filmed in April, May, right? They were not sure what the state of the world would be like, of like, great, we'll guarantee we'll come back in December for a live show in LA. They wanted to make sure that a winner was announced no matter what, and they wanted to avoid the awkward zoominess of the Winners at War finale. So it's being read on the island, which is exciting. I think maybe you get some more interesting emotions now that the final 3 will not be well rested and gussied up. They miss out on that moment, but we also get to see maybe they're like how starved people react to winning $1 million in the moment.
I love it. I mean, I just finished the Australian Survivor from this summer, Brains versus Brawn, and they do that like right there, and you just get the winner, and I'm just like, yes. So I'm very excited that they're doing that this year.
Did you love it? I thought you would love it because I know you were also a fan of, like, for lack of a better term, production shenanigans. Like, you're fine with just like throwing in random crap, and that was Australian Survivor Brains versus Brawn in a nutshell.
I mean, it kind of was, but it didn't feel as intrusive as this season. Although, like you said, the cast has battled it so well. I'm not going to say the winner because I know Chantele is still working her way through it, but the winner is one of my all-time favorite players of like all the versions. So yeah, I loved the season overall. Every episode was exciting. So yeah. And there was definitely a twist that I was not a fan of, but you gotta roll with it. So
shocker.
I know, shocker. Well, Chantele, I know you have stuff going on too. Please tell us where we can find you and what to watch.
Not as much as Mike Bloom. It makes
me
look like I'm just slacking, like not doing anything at all.
No, I'm the outlier here. Like, do not copy my lifestyle, any of you out there. I do not condone this. Do not follow in my footsteps, okay? I'm leaving no footprints behind.
Yeah, I'm going to check in on you, Mike, and be like, are you resting at all?
I mean, resting is, I have a 2-year-old as well, so like I gave up resting a while ago.
None of it. No resting.
Well, easy peasy over at my channel, Reality Realness with 3 S's. Everything's coming to an end. So it'll be the finale on Wednesday after the episode for the challenge. Also doing Survivor on Thursday. We'll go do like a recap of the season and that final episode. And then on Fridays, I talk with Reality Pop about the challenge, both All-Stars and the regular season. So I think that's it, but it feels like so little in comparison. I mean, people are usually like, oh my gosh.
But you're talking about 2 shows, right? And All Stars has been. I really recommend if people have like sort of tuned out on modern day challenge. The challenge All Stars is awesome. It's so awesome in so many ways.
I love it. It's delicious.
It's good to hear, guys. But you will also be covering Amazing Race in the new year. You and I have talked about that
in the new year. So fun.
Obviously,
I'll be covering all those things in the new year. I think
Celebrity Big Brother, all of it. You'll be covering all of it in the new year.
Yes.
That's the exciting stuff. Is like January 5th, we like barely get a break. We've got Amazing Race starting. Obviously, David and I are going to be covering that, and I do believe we get to do exit press for this season. I'm so excited. But we will have our cast assessment video probably next week. We don't have a date set yet. I have to work with David's work schedule, but that will be coming up soon. Very excited about that season and all the other things, Celebrity Big Brother, Survivor 42, Survivor Australia. I will absolutely be watching that in real time coming up because that's exciting.
Man. Good luck. It's 3 episodes a week. It can be tough. It can be tough, especially because it's going to be airing in the midst of Survivor 42
everything
as well. It's going to be a test, but you know what? And no matter what, it's waiting for you. And let me add on there. Not a plug for me. It's a plug for International Survivor because here's the thing.
Yeah.
2 days from now, December 15th, we got 2 more seasons of International Survivor coming to Paramount Plus. We have the most recent season of Survivor South Africa Immunity Island, And Survivor New Zealand was, it was a long time ago. It was 2018, I think. It got canceled after 2 seasons. But season 2 is good. And it is coming to Paramount Plus. So I really encourage people to check it out. Survivor South Africa especially. I know that there's a big to-do about Australian Survivor. But in my opinion, Survivor South Africa is the best run Survivor franchise out there nowadays. And so I really encourage people to check it out. It was a really fun season in Immunity Island. So if you're jonesing for more Survivor.
What date was that?
The 15th. So the day that the finale airs, actually.
Well, you guys on Paramount Plus. Okay, great. Highly recommend Survivor South Africa. Chantele and I covered it. So watch it on Paramount Plus, then come to either one of our channels, watch the recap. It's such a good season. And honestly, Nico, he might be my favorite host.
He's so cute.
Of all the survivors. I think he might be.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, he's with no respect to the other hosts, I think he's by far the most attractive of all the hosts.
Maybe that's it.
I like Jonathan's shadiness. He really seems like someone he's kind of like rough and tumble, like someone you could joke around with. But Nico, I think, is someone I would just like. I like him to snuff my torch. I'll just watch him do that. That's fine. You crush my dreams.
Yeah. And then let's sit down and have a beer together or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, all the wonderful stuff, but mostly we're so excited for the finale this Wednesday. So yes, both Chantele and Mike's Twitter is listed below. So please follow if you aren't already. Keep up with all of the parade.com interviews and obviously all of the videos that we're all doing. And everyone in the chat, thank you so much for joining us live. We really appreciate all of your input and insight. And anyone who's joining us later, please leave comments. Let us know how you're rating this Final 5, what your predictions are for the finale. Really would love to hear it. And we'll all see you guys after the finale. Yay. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Jazz hands.